They say the best revenge is living well. I used to think that sounded polite enough to be useless. At 63 years old, I know better. Sometimes the best revenge is much quieter than that. Sometimes it is sitting perfectly still while the man who ruined your family walks himself straight into the trap he built. My late wife, Marcia, used to say I slept with one eye open. Gavin Pierce, she'd tell people, could hear a moth sneeze in a thunderstorm. She wasn't wrong. So when my phone buzzed at 12:04 a.m. on a Thursday in November, I was awake before the first ring finished. We live in Raleigh, North Carolina, in a neighborhood where the oak trees are older than most of the houses, and everybody knows your car by sound. Quiet street, good bones. The kind of place where nothing happens. Except that night. I looked at the screen and felt my chest tighten. Dominic. My oldest son had not called me after 9 at night since his mother's funeral. Dominic Pierce does not make late-night calls. He makes 7 a.m. check-ins, birthday texts 2 days early, and Christmas cards with handwritten notes like it is still 1987. I answered on the second buzz. Dom? His voice was flat, controlled, worse than panic. Don't talk, just listen. I need you to do exactly what I say right now. I sat up straight. Boy, it's midnight. Dad. Something in that one word locked every muscle in my body. I had heard that tone twice before in my life. Once when he told me his mother's cancer had spread. Once when he told me he was going to prison for something he didn't do. I'm listening, I said. Turn off every light in the house. Don't touch your laptop. Don't touch the router. Go upstairs to the attic. Lock the door from the inside. And Dad? He stopped long enough for me to hear him breathing. Do not tell Tristan. The room went cold. Tristan Hale, my son-in-law, my daughter Delilah's husband of 9 years. The man sleeping in my guest bedroom because, according to him, his firm was renovating their condo in Charlotte, and it was easier to stay with me for a few days. I had believed him. I had made the man pot roast. Let him drink my good bourbon. Dominic, I whispered, you're scaring me. Good, he said, and his voice cracked just a little. Be scared. Be quiet. Go. Now. I didn't ask questions. I moved through my own house in the dark like a burglar. Past the family photos. Past Marcia's cross-stitch by the linen closet. Home is where the heart is. I used to think that was corny. After she died, it became unbearable. I climbed into the attic, locked the door, and sat down on an old moving box labeled Marcia Winter Clothes. I did not know it yet, but I was sitting 3 feet above a secret that had been buried for 8 years. The attic was half finished. Insulation, boxes, old furniture, 2 round windows facing the backyard. Marcia always wanted to turn it into a reading room. Never happened. Maybe 20 minutes after I got up there, I found myself staring through a warped crack in the floorboards near the east wall. The guest bedroom below was dark. Then the lamp clicked on. Tristan stood in the middle of the room in an undershirt and slacks, looking at his watch. He looked the way he always had to me. Neat, purposeful, the kind of handsome that never quite reaches the eyes. He crossed to the far corner, moved an old armchair that had belonged to Marcia's mother, and revealed a section of floor I had never noticed. Then he pressed 2 fingers to the baseboard. A hidden panel lifted clean. Underneath it was a safe. I have lived in that house for 26 years. I built 2 of the rooms with my own hands. I know every softboard, every crack, every switch that sticks when it rains. I did not know that safe existed. Tristan opened it in under 20 seconds. He pulled out a thick rubber-banded folder, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened it under the lamp. From where I was, I couldn't read much. Just the header on the top page. Last Will and Testament. And below that, in smaller print, Marcia Elaine Pierce. My hands stopped working. Marcia had a will, yes. We drew it up together in 2009 with an attorney on Glenwood Avenue. I watched her sign it. I had a copy in a green folder downstairs labeled Important in her handwriting. Her estate was settled 2 years after she passed, divided between Dominic, Delilah, and me, with a small disbursement to Sienna, Delilah's college roommate and Marcia's honorary niece. That was the will. That was supposed to be the only will. So what was Tristan doing in my guest room at 12? 17 inches the morning, photographing a will hidden in a safe I did not know was in my house. I pressed my face harder against the crack. He turned pages, stopped, took photos, calm, methodical, like a man finishing maintenance on an expensive appliance. And sitting in that attic, I started doing math I had spent 8 years trying not to do. Dominic had gone to prison 8 years earlier for wire fraud. Federal case. Evidence that appeared out of nowhere. A prosecution that moved too fast. He served 22 months in Butner before clawing his life back piece by piece. Later, he joined the FBI. I had always told myself that was Dominic turning pain into purpose. Up there in the dark, listening to Tristan photograph my dead wife's will, I began to understand something else. Maybe Dominic had not joined the FBI because he was inspired. Maybe he had joined because he was hunting. The lamp finally clicked off. I stayed where I was until dawn. At 4:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Still up there?" Dominic texted. "Where else would I be?" 3 dots. "Come down side door. Leave the lights off. He's here." His gray Tahoe was parked 2 houses down. I slipped out in my house slippers, crossed the yard in the cold, and got in. He looked exhausted. 38 years old and suddenly more like his mother than ever. Same eyes, same jaw. I stared at him for a long moment and said the only thing that came to mind. "Pot roast?" He blinked. "What?" "I made that man pot roast, Dominic. I let him drink my Blantons." The ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I know, Dad. You could have called me sooner." "I couldn't. Not until I had physical evidence. Before tonight, everything was circumstantial. I needed him to go for the safe." I turned toward him. "You knew about the safe." "I've known about it for 14 months. Then he started talking, and for the next 40 minutes I did not interrupt him once. It started with money. Marcia's estate had not been enormous, but it was enough. The house, life insurance, savings she had built over 30 years by clipping coupons and never paying full price for anything. A little over $400,000 altogether. The original will split everything evenly between Dominic, Delilah, and me, with $15,000 set aside for Sienna. The will that got filed was different. Dominic's share had been reduced to $8,000. The rest folded into Delilah's portion, meaning Tristan's portion, meaning while my son was sitting in federal prison for a crime he did not commit, Tristan Hale was taking what Marcia meant to leave him. "How?" I asked. "He had help at the law firm," Dominic said. "A paralegal who got paid to swap the documents before filing. The original got buried. Tristan kept it as insurance." "Against who?" "Against Delilah, in case she ever turned on him." I sat there with my hand on the door handle, trying not to break it off. "And the wire fraud?" Dominic exhaled. "Fabricated. Tristan had a college friend at a brokerage in Charlotte. They built a paper trail, fake transactions, shell accounts, enough to point the SEC and DOJ at me. It was planned before he proposed to Delilah." That sentence hit harder than the rest. Before he asked for my daughter's hand, he had already planned to destroy my son. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because you would have gone to Delilah." He was right. "And Delilah would have gone to Tristan," he said. "And he would have run. Or worse." Dominic told me he had spent 8 years building the case properly, carefully, legally, surveillance, financial records, witness pressure, the paralegal, the brokerage friend, the safe. All of it had to line up. He could not move early. Tristan had leverage on too many people. Then he reached into the folder on his lap and handed me an invitation. Cream cardstock. Gold lettering. Tristan and Delilah Hale. 9th anniversary dinner. Saturday, November 14th. 7 p.m. Brasserie LaCroix. "Tomorrow night," Dominic said. "We let him enjoy his appetizer. Then we end it." I looked at the invitation and felt something settle inside me. Hard. Permanent. "Sienna's going to be there," I said. "She's already been briefed," he said. "She's been helping verify the original will." Of course she had. Sienna remembered everything. I got out of the Tahoe in the cold and stood there looking at my house. Somewhere down the hall, Tristan Hale was asleep in my guest bedroom. Tomorrow he'd be celebrating 9 years of marriage. Tomorrow night he was going to lose everything. Saturday morning, I made myself eggs, toast, coffee, the works. You should never do anything important on an empty stomach. My mother taught me that. Tristan came downstairs in his robe at 8:15, asked if there was any coffee left, and I poured him a cup with a smile. He sat at Marcia's kitchen table scrolling his phone like a man whose life was perfectly arranged. And why wouldn't he? He had been winning for 8 years. Sent my son to prison, stolen from my dead wife, slept in my house, sat in my church pew at Christmas with his arm around my daughter. Big night tonight, he said. Sure is. Delilah's been planning it for months. You coming? I looked him right in the eye. I would not miss it for the world, Tristan. Something flickered across his face. Just for a second. Then the polished smile came back. Brasserie La Croix was all dark wood, candlelight, white tablecloths, and menu prices you were apparently too elegant to ask about. I got there early. Sienna arrived right after me in a burgundy dress, sat beside me, and squeezed my hand once. You okay? She asked. Ask me in an hour. The table filled in. 2 couples from Tristan's firm. Pastor Gerald Webb, who had married Tristan and Delilah. Then Delilah herself, in a green dress that made her look so much like her mother, it hurt me to look at her. She was laughing when she walked in. That complicated things. Tristan worked the table like a campaign stop. Handshakes, charm, easy stories, topping off everyone's wine. He sat at the head like a man born for candlelight and admiration. Appetizers came, bread, salads. Pastor Webb told a story about the wedding. Said he had never seen a groom so calm, so composed. Yeah, I thought, because by then he already thought he had won. My phone buzzed under the table. 2 minutes, Dominic texted. I set my phone down. The main course arrived, and then the front door opened. Dominic walked in wearing a navy suit and no tie. Behind him came a woman in a blazer and a man in a gray jacket. They moved through that dining room with the kind of authority that doesn't raise its voice because it doesn't have to. The restaurant quieted in ripples. Delilah saw Dominic first. Her face lit up. Dom, oh my gosh, you came. Then she saw the 2 people behind him and stopped. Dominic walked straight to the head of the table without looking at anyone but Tristan. Tristan turned slowly, and for one clean, expensive second, I watched 9 years of composure leave his face. Dominic stopped beside him. Tristan Allen Hale, he said, calm as winter. You're under arrest for wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and tampering with a legal instrument. You have the right to remain silent. Tristan found enough breath to say, What is this? This is a private dinner. This is my anniversary. Dominic didn't blink. I have the original will, Tristan. I have the safe contents. The photographs you took Thursday night. I have testimony from the paralegal. Your attorney paid $22,000 in 2015. I have 8 years of financial records connecting you to shell accounts used to fabricate the case against me. And your college roommate is already in federal custody in Charlotte. Silence. Complete. Heavy. Holy. The woman in the blazer stepped forward with handcuffs. Tristan stood. He looked across the table at me like he was finally understanding something. I looked back and gave him nothing. No smile. No speech. Just the truth in my face. You sat at my table. You drank my bourbon. You ate my pot roast. You slept in my house. You put my son in a cage. You stole from my dead wife. The cuffs clicked shut. Pastor Webb made a small broken sound. One of Tristan's co-workers shoved her chair back like the table had caught fire. Delilah still had not moved, both hands flat on the white cloth. Her face emptied out so completely, I could not bear to stare at it long. Dominic's colleagues led Tristan away. At the door, he turned back once toward Delilah. She looked down at her hands. Then, he was gone. The restaurant stayed silent for a moment, and then the world remembered how to move. Dominic came back and sat in Tristan's chair. I'm sorry, he said to Delilah. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. She looked at him with dry eyes. Marcia's daughter. How long? 8 years building it. 6 months knowing enough to move. The will? Mom's real will is being restored. Equal shares. Sienna's too. Delilah looked at Sienna. They had one of those long female conversations without saying a word. Then she looked at me. Daddy, she said, and her voice broke on exactly that one word. I got up and put my arms around her. I've got you, I said. I've always got you. She cried once, quietly, then straightened, wiped her face with the linen napkin, and looked down at her untouched plate. Is the food good here? She asked. I blinked. What? The food. Is it good? Because I picked this restaurant and I've never actually eaten here, and I would like to eat something. I looked at my son, looked at Sienna, looked at Pastor Webb, who appeared to have just watched a sermon arrive in human form. Then I flagged down the waiter, and we ate. 3 weeks later, I stood in my kitchen at dawn with a cup of coffee and a green folder on the counter, Marcia's handwriting on the tab. Important. Inside was the restored original will. Not a copy, not a photo, the real thing, filed correctly at last. Marcia's actual words. Marcia's actual intentions. The version where my son was not erased. I laid my hand on the folder and looked toward the wall where her cross-stitch still hung. Got him, Marcia, I said into the quiet kitchen. Took us a while, but we got him. Outside, the first bird of the morning started up like it had something to prove. I poured my coffee, took a sip, and for the first time in 8 years, it tasted exactly the way it was supposed to.